Hello, we are ComeInUnity, a group project from Babassa focusing on issues around our area surrounding gentrification and climate change. We decided to make a film about it.
My name is Stanley, first of all. I'm a business lawyer based in St. Paul's. I moved to England when I was 8 years old, so I'm actually an immigrant. When we first came to England, St. Paul's was full of culture. It was very vibrant. St. Paul's is known for its sense of community. And strongly associated with that word community is this collectivist mindset. However, over the years, I think a lot of people who are struggling to make ends meet have had to start thinking more about themselves, which has made it harder for them to band together, essentially. It's made it harder for them to identify that sense of community because they're essentially in survival mode.
You hear lots of things about St. Paul's being a bad place, being full of crime, drugs, etc. It's not the case. It's like any place you go. You can go to Brixton, they'd say something about Brixton. You can go to Toxteth. There's always areas where they're slightly undesirable, but yeah, I love it and I enjoy it here. I read about 40 years ago when I worked for another firm which was on the corner. You're going to get some rich person who's going to come in, who's going to buy that, turn it into flats, and the people around here will not be able to pay for those flats or live there, and it'll be a lot of rich Europeans who's moved in. And exactly what I said, 30 years on, it's exactly the same. They've built their flats. I don't think any local person has been able to buy one there. You don't even know sometimes who your neighbour is, because they've just moved new people in, and you don't have that same community spirit where you get to know people. If you walk down the road and you see an elderly person, you call them auntie, or if it's a gentleman, you call them uncle. But it's not the same now, it's all changed.
When I was growing up, the West Indian community were mainly owner-occupiers, because at that time, back I suppose in the late 60s and 70s, certainly when my parents arrived, it was very difficult for them to obtain accommodation. So if I take my father, for instance, my parents, for instance, they invested in property. But over the years, the generation that came after, my generation, the generations that followed, sadly didn't follow that path. And when the older generation passed away, they tended to sell the properties on. So I think that was a big mistake, and that really transformed the area, because people didn't invest, they sold off, so other people could come in and buy.
So my name's Tyesha, I'm 25 and I'm Bristolian. Both of my parents were born and kind of raised within St. Paul's, and then I was raised and born in Easton. It really just gives a sense of representation, a sense of community, and I can see myself in the community. This neighbourhood has changed quite a bit. I would say that a lot of the areas within St. Paul's and Easton are no longer community-based, but more so businesses, a bit more affluent than how it used to be. There's not a lot of things for the youth to do as well in the community anymore, so I think those will probably be the main things that I see as changes. My understanding of gentrification is when those from more affluent, wealthy areas or communities, they tend to come to communities that are underrepresented, underprivileged, and kind of change the way that those communities kind of run. They end up having to have the locals move out because they can no longer afford the area, or they no longer see it as a place where they feel community. My understanding of the relationship between climate injustice and gentrification, it tends to be that those that do not necessarily contribute so much to environmental issues or problems, they're the ones that kind of end up having to face the injustice of climate changes. It tends to be, the wealthy people, they come in, they want the change, they build up the areas, there's more green spaces, there's more areas, but then the price in those areas then build up because they look more appealing to others. And that in change then causes the rise in cost, injustices in terms of the people and the locals that live there, and it all, once again, kind of roundabout way feeds back into the whole gentrification. And yeah, the locals in the community having to kind of face the brunt end of that. The spaces, especially in Easton, that were used for bringing people together and were green spaces, they've now been changed to building developments or more shops or more housing sites. And it's taken away from that community feel and that togetherness. And when it actually comes down to change or meaningful change, we hardly ever actually see it. The rise in big supermarket brands coming onto streets where there's loads of independent shops, or housing developments, or even just off of Easton in the Barton Hill community, you know, the bus gate situation where a lot of the community voted against it, but they went ahead with it anyway. So it makes you think, do we really have a say? Do we really have a voice in the community or not?
Connection to Easton because I've lived here for my whole life, and I went to school here. Most of my family live in that area. There's just a lot of memories, like good memories there. It's important to me because I have little cousins and they're going to be growing up in it. We need to keep a lot of the culture still in our community because it's kind of dying out, and it needs to stay in our community because it represents our community. I guess sometimes the community doesn't act like a community. We don't help each other out, and we're not making as much of an effort to keep our area clean and like do things about it. And yeah, just a bit upset because obviously my little cousins have to see the litter, they have to play amongst it, and it's not really fair on them. So how does Easton make you feel when you see the rubbish and the loud noises, maybe? Bad. Things are being built up, so my area doesn't look how it used to 20 years ago. Developers are obviously coming in, and yeah, it just pushes people out, I guess. And there's way more people on the streets, so that's why seeing litter and stuff, it really annoys me because there's literally kids everywhere. So they need to have like a clean space to actually play and enjoy and be safe in. What would you like? Tell us.
More parks.
And what else? Would you like to see less litter?
Yeah.
The younger generation, they might just want to move to a different city just to escape that, and they can't go to like green spaces or have a walk again because they're probably annoyed and frustrated, which it all goes hand in hand with like the aggression that some boys have and the fact that they don't want to ever be home and they're always travelling. It's because they're trying to escape their environment. Yeah, I just think it affects every generation, but it's going to affect the future more so. So spreading knowledge and awareness to the younger generation through schools and youth clubs, anything. Also being positive and supporting the community in tidying up and keeping clean, and if they do want to go to like bigger organisations like the council, supporting each other with that. I feel like we all need to work as a team to make the right change and the positive change.